Hi guys, in this tutorial we're going to look at how to do a quick video render of your animations. If you see what we've got here, we've got the block out of the throw animation which you've been using in the other videos. What we're going to be doing is just rendering essentially 41 frames, so all the frames on our timeline we've got out into a video. Bear in mind we've done renders before, we've been rendering a single frame image. What we're going to do is render out 41 separate images and then compile them together into a video. So you can see we've just got the block out of the front animation here. It's not finished, but we're just using this as a test to show you how to render. So what we need to look at is if you've got a camera set up, we're going to render from that camera. And the main thing you need to do is change the render settings. So you can access those through the rendering menu or the little button up here. The key thing to know is to choose what software we're going to render with. So by default, you're probably in My Software. We're going to change and use Arnold Renderer to get a better result. If your Arnold Renderer isn't loaded, you can go to your plugin manager, scroll all the way down and look for M2A, My to Arnold, and make sure that's loaded. So now we've got the Arnold Renderer here. What we're going to do is change some of the settings. You can play with the sampling if you want a bit higher quality, but for now we're not going to bother. You can change the name here of the images. You can see the file name there. We're going to use a JPEG to get a nice compressed file. The key thing is, guys, if you render it now, you can see it's a single frame. So if we were to render that, you'd only get one image rendered out. If you go to the one below that, where it says the name and the prefix and the extension, that's all we want in order to render all of our frames on our timeline. So once we've done that, guys, we can see up top here, you'll get the name and the number of the image, ordered 1 to how many frames you've chose. So now we're going to choose the start frame, which is frame 1, and our end frame, which is 41. Just put how many frames you're going to be using for your animation. Make sure you've got the camera you want to render with, which is camera 1. You could choose that preset, but I suggest going a bit larger. 1024 should be fine. If you want to go for a bit higher quality and a larger resolution, you go to 1080. But bear in mind, the higher settings you go, the more quality you have, and the more lights, etc. we have to render, the longer it will take to actually render each image. So we'll just put a decent amount. Keep it 1024. Once you've got the render settings set up, hide anything you don't want in your scene. So I'm just going to hide this. Control H on my keyboard. We can hide the controls here as well. And now in our camera view, what we need to do before we actually go and render it is use some lights. So we're not going to use Maya lights here. What we're going to use is Arnold lights because we're using the Arnold renderer. And a good solution for this is the sky dome light for a nice quick result. So make sure that sky dome encompasses basically the area of your animation. So we're just going to make a plane for the floor. And then now we can go to our render settings, render sequence, click on the settings box. Make sure you've got your camera. And now we're going to set an output file location for each one of these frames to save. So just make yourself a folder. I'll put that in my Maya folder here. I've just set up a test folder here. Got some previous ones there from a test. And we're just going to select that folder and use it as our folder for the output of these images. And if you've got it all set up, just click render sequence. That's just rendering a previous frame, but now we can see what it should do is calculate and render each frame one by one, depending on how many frames you've got. Essentially, if you've got 200-300 frames, this could take a while. As long as the settings aren't too high, maybe 15-20 minutes. You can see here it's rendering every frame and saving each one of these out into the folder. We can see as they render, that's updating live in the folder there. What we're going to do next, guys, is once we've got all these images saved out and rendered, we're going to compile these together in Premiere Pro and export as a video file. I'll see you in the next step, guys. Okay guys, now we're in Premiere Pro. What we're going to do is make ourselves a new project. You can set this up if you want, but I'm just going to use a blank project because we're not actually using it. We're just using it to export. So what we're going to do is import some media into our project. What we're going to be doing is importing all our images. So I'm going to go to import, find your folder. The key thing to note is what we're not doing is actually importing each image individually. So what we're going to do is find the folder, and rather than importing all of those 41 images, as long as you've named it correctly with the right naming conventions in Maya, we should be able to just click on the first frame, as long as that's all in order, 1, 2, 3 to 41. So I'm going to select that, and notice we've got a box here called image sequence. If you tick that and select the first image in order and then click open, that should load the whole image sequence in as one thing into your project. We can now drag that over into our sequence into Premiere, and we can see it plays all those frames now together as a video. You can add audio if you want to, if you want to get a kind of a soundtrack, if you want some sound effects, you can change that, you can move things around, put a little kind of intro if you want to. I'm just going to keep it simple. All we need to do now is export as media. The main thing you want is to use the H.264 format, which is your kind of standard YouTube format. Keep the bitrate the same, go for a high bitrate. We can see the file size there, it's only 2 megs, it's only short. And if you want audio, you can have that ticked, it doesn't really make much of a difference. And the main thing you want to do is select the blue writing to choose your name and where you're going to save it, and then just click export. You can see as it's only short there, it didn't take long. That should export a video file now, which we can use and put on your YouTube and then link to your blogs for your final animations. And that's it for this tutorial guys, thanks for watching.